All right. Call a meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled budget evaluation team meeting for Tuesday, August the 6th. I noticed the meeting was properly posted on August the 5th. Item number 1, discussion of possible action regarding the minutes of July 9.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 2, we don't need today. John can't be here. He had an emergency. I talked to him a bit ago. Unfortunately, could not make it. He said that the claims and everything are looking good for July. Everything was good. And he said that he's been working with the treasurer's office as well as the clerk's office. It seems like the mechanisms that we need to get in place to make sure everything is handled from a funding standpoint is moving in a positive direction. So he will be available if anybody has any questions for him. You can send him emails or whatever. He cannot make this meeting. So item 3, is there any discussions regarding the blank watch list?
Can we fill in the blanks?
I like it the way it is.
Good try.
All right, let's go ahead and I think Judge Stinson is here on item number 6. I don't think we'll have much with 4 and 5, but just in case, let's go ahead and move to item 6 so the judge can leave if she so chooses after this item. Item 6, discussion possible action regarding studying, developing, and making recommendation or recommendations to budget board regarding the $14,892,110.32 comprised of non-recurring revenue approved for transfer to 1001 general fund by the budget board. This was the clerk's office had requested this on here, but it was action by budget board as well to send it here. I don't know if there's
based on budget board, there was several options, several discussions. So it's just, putting it back to BET to kind of plan and study it and figure out what we can do and when we can do it based on the cash flow. I know, our office would like to see at least the 5.5 committed back to, to the jail, new construction jail fund that we, pulled out of, but are also, in agreement with, the whole 14 going in. But we also know there's other capital projects too that may be on the list. So it's just kind of to start that discussion with that.
Okay.
14 million.
Judge Stinson.
Thank you. We just wanted to kind of get on your radar today about some needs from the court. We had requested some remodeling at the Juvenile Justice Center for the 3 new courtrooms to facilitate the growth in the county and the growth of the judiciary that we have gotten. And we were allotted $2 million for the construction of those courtrooms previously. Inclusive of that is the $3,000 for the architectural fee and the draw-ups and all the stuff that comes before you actually start the construction side. The estimate has come back from GH2 and it is $7,054,000. And it's not fancy. We're not asking for high-end marble or anything. It's just 3 courtrooms with wood benches and a lot of infrastructure, electrical equipment, plumbing, all the things that comes whenever you kind of gut and remodel an older building. So it's coming in at $7,054,000, leaving a deficit of $5.3 million from what we had originally been allotted. Oklahoma County last year received 2 additional judges from the Supreme Court to fill our growing case numbers and dockets. Presiding Judge Ogden has recently asked the Chief Justice to continue our original request, which is 2 more judges. So hopefully we'll have 4 total new judges coming from next year's Supreme Court budget. and so we'll need somewhere to put them. So we just ask if there are funds with some types of restrictions coming back in, that do qualify under any restrictions those funds have, that they be set aside to finish the renovation, or to start it and finish the renovation and remodel at the JJC. It would help relieve traffic in the downtown courthouse. We're, I think Presiding Judge Ogden was looking at moving the entirety of the probate, guardianship, and adoption dockets all out there, which would move all of the foot traffic, staff, everyone from this building to another building, taking some pressure off of the elevators, all the infrastructure that you all deal with, and we just complain about, we just see happen. And so it would move some of the traffic out to that building and kind of centralize some of the child-related dockets out there. So that's our request. Wherever that needs to go is the $5.3 million to begin and conclude the remodel and renovation of JJC. So, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You said originally it was budgeted at $2 million?
That was, we never had any numbers, I
Okay.
believe, and I was not in.
Yeah, that was the money that was set aside for the
Mhm.
project.
Mhm.
Our architect, I was shocked that they were willing to do this. Keith mentioned to me this possibility of asking them to do some number runs ahead of time before we even sign the contract with them, so we're not even paying them, so we can see, are we getting really far down the road, spending a lot of money on something that we can't even afford. They actually agreed to do it and provided these numbers, which was
$2 million.
fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
No, they got to the 7 million.
Oh.
Now, the 7 million is with some contingencies. They don't know for sure, like on the fire suppression system, are they gonna have to redo the whole system, just part of the system? But I appreciate the judge presenting the full number, because that is possibly the full amount that we have to come up with is the $7 million. They don't know for sure on loading capacity, because you're changing the dynamic of the floor to kind of a, what do you call it, a crowd situation.
Yeah, the use of the space, and then whether or not a complete remodel of the second floor is enough to trigger bringing the life safety
Of the
components of the entire building into compliance with today's standards. So there was a domino effect here that I'm glad we were able to account for. So life safety, fire suppression, the HVAC, the mechanical work that will be necessary there, it all began to snowball. Originally, we had counted, to maybe go back and speak to that $2 million figure, we had thrown numbers out of $500,000 per courtroom. The judiciary said we need to move at least 3 judges out there to do any good. We have to have those 3 judges and that activity out there. 4 courtrooms, $500,000 each, inclusive of the architectural and design fees, which at the time were, the initial number was $150,000. Rather than engage an architect to set about designing a courtroom or courtrooms for $150,000, I thought it best if we asked them if they would do current numbers to see exactly where we're going to be, rather than encumber and spend and contract for $150,000. We know where we are. That was going to grow anyway, and so thank you again, GH2, if you're watching, for the work that they did for us here. So the 7.4 was a realistic look at what it would cost to do that work today.
Where did the 2 come from originally?
That's what I was
I can answer that.
Yeah, it sounds like it was the 500,000
for 4 courtrooms.
No, $2 million was what was left over from the first tranche of money that came out of the bonds. $13 million was taken care of. We had asked for up to 4 courtrooms. Then we backed it off to 3 courtrooms plus a jury room and open space where we have a law locker room, whatever. The only amount of money that was left was $2 million. So someone decided, well, then we'll do $500,000 per courtroom. It was not based on any data other than this is what we have.
It was
Is this the most
our
recent?
employees trying to figure out, can we meet the need of the judiciary with the money that we had available? I mean, we could have said no and moved the $2 million and gone a completely different direction, but that was not the decision. We tried to move forward and see what the numbers were, but of course, we don't have estimators on staff to be able to get good, solid, hard numbers. I appreciate, once again, the judge bringing the full $7 million amount, because, I mean, it's likely that we're going to, if not need all of the contingency apparatus that's built into that number, a lot of it we very well may need. I told Renee earlier, when Renee called me to let me know that you wanted to be here, that as soon as we talked about this in policy and governance a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, when we got the $7 million number, I've been tracking this, trying to think if we can fit this into September supplement, knowing that we were going to have these monies. So, and I don't think I'm the only one. I think there's others that have been considering that, trying to see if we can move forward. There are lots of needs, though, so we're going to have to kind of figure out, you know, where we go. But I do definitely think that that needs to be there on that list. Now, that $7 million, that's not the full amount that's needed. It would be an additional $5 million, not the 7, because there's $2 million already allocated to the project. So that's kind of the background of this. So
Cody, where's the 2 million sitting? Do you know by chance? She's saying bond money. Where is it?
it's the PBA revenue bonds. I don't know what fund those dollars got put into specifically, the number. Do you, Keith?
I don't offhand. I know that we've not called upon the bonds for any particular use at this time.
Right.
Okay.
But that's kind of the
So it's the most
allocation
recent
piece.
PBA bond issue?
Yeah. And on that PBA bond issue, what we're trying to do is balance different pieces, because one of the things that we were looking at doing initially was a larger bond issuance. But with cash flows and all of that, this was what we could do, which was the 15 million. We weren't maxed, but that's what it looked like we could do. What the thought process was, as we use that first $15 million, we would look at revenue generating items. For instance, the court clerk's office, we pay rent, a significant amount of rent for storage space. Could we buy that space or buy another space to put in there that generates revenue that we are already spending? If it generates that revenue, when we go back out for a second issuance of revenue bonds, it enhances our ability to get more funding to do projects like this that aren't generating the revenue. So we're trying to kind of balance where we spend the money, when we spend it, so that we can maximize the full value. Now, the judiciary's in a situation to where they need courtrooms fairly expediently and not, wait 5, 6, 7 years, and I get that. So that's kind of where that balancing act is, that when we're looking at $2 million or whatever, it's because we're trying to figure out how we can maximize our second issuance and not necessarily handcuff ourselves to where we've done certain projects and now we can't do additional projects because we don't have the revenue to be able to support an additional revenue bond, if that makes sense.
So is PBA taking a look at this shortfall?
It was
May help with
presented
any
in, I said policy and governance, I guess it was not infrastructure, the PBA advisory. Yeah. So yeah, it has been presented. GH2 presented the numbers, and I've been really impressed with their work and everything. So hopefully we can save some money from the $7 million, but with the way construction costs and everything go, I mean, even if we save stuff because we don't have to do all of the contingencies, there's a potential that those savings are soaked up by cost escalations, right? So don't know for sure where we're gonna be.
Did PBA advisory make a determination on,
Have not. We just received the information.
Okay.
Just
and
what-
I'm hearing 5.3. 5.3 or 5.4 short when you said that it's gonna be 7,000 or 7,054,000 and we have two. How are we getting to 5.3 and 5.4? Was that the 300,000 you mentioned?
That was to be paid out of the 2 million for all the architectural drawings and everything. That was my understanding. So that had been allotted to come out of the 2 million for all the drops and the everything that they do on the front end.
So when they estimated the whole project for the 3 courtrooms, it's 7,054,000. Were those in there as well? They should have all been part of the project, right?
Their estimate was over $7 million, inclusive of the architectural
Okay.
fees associated with this. Had we acted on the initial $2 million, which was inclusive of the architect's fees, by the time we arrived at a number, this whatever it is, $1 million number, the scope of the architect's fees would have gone off the charts, and we'd have had to do something different there anyway.
Right.
So,
Because their fees are in large part driven by the total cost of the
Yes.
project.
But it's just 5 million total.
we have $2 million, I understand, set aside for
Okay.
this project bond money, a 5.5 or 5.4 figure deficiency that needs to be made up.
Yeah, it'll be whatever your total amount there is, a 7+ million minus 2, and that'll be the deficiency. One thing that I've been trying to explain to folks, the $10 million that we had from the revenue replacement, it was in the jail construction account, but the kind of part of the thought process there with BOCC moving through, Colton can correct me if he has a different recollection because he sits on policy and governance on the ARPA discussions and that kind of stuff. But the behavioral health center, which is part of the overall jail piece, we were looking at a $50 million cost, and we allocated $40 million of ARPA interest, or not interest, $40 million of ARPA dollars for that, and then we were offsetting that with that $10 million to get to the 50. That's where, when we talk about we've moved $10 million from the jail construction, that's what we're talking about is behavioral health, the behavioral care center. Is that your
I had
recollection?
some recollection as well.
Okay, so that's my concern is making sure that we're all kind of, on the same nomenclature, if you will, when we're talking jail construction. You've got the global discussion about the jail construction, and then there's kind of two pieces. There's the physical jail part, and then the behavioral care center. I have talked to Stacy, and the numbers, I believe, on that are looking closer to between 45 and 46 million instead of 50 million. And if that's the case, that difference is almost a difference here, right? If we have to, find the 5 million, if we only have to find $5 million to go on top of the 40 million ARPA for the behavioral care center, that other $5 million could be available for other things, and then still have another $5 million of this roughly $15 million.
Now, that's as it stands right now today. So for the behavioral health, we still have the 40 in the jail money. And then, but right now, your 10, your revenue replacement of revenue allowance isn't in there right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 40 in
So as it
ARPA.
stands right now today on the books, there's 40
Right.
for the behavioral health.
And that's where what my concern is making sure that is a piece that we really, really need to do. It's going to help the jail. It's going to help the judiciary. It's going to help everybody. And it's something that is almost fully funded. It was, and the reason why we pulled that 10 was because we needed to do two things. Kind of like I mentioned, about the judiciary needing those courtrooms expeditiously and not waiting. We had two pieces that the BOCC decided they needed to do and not wait until September supplement. Those two things were purchase land. They had to have the money to purchase it, so they used part of that money that was pulled out to purchase that. The other piece of it was to go to encumber a contract for an HVAC project at the current jail. There was some life safety issues with the current HVAC system tying in to various other pieces, and we needed to get that fixed. And the board decided that it wasn't advantageous. It wasn't a smart business decision to wait on something like that. We needed to move so that we can go ahead and encumber that contract. We had to have money to encumber the contract, so we pulled 5.5 million of that 10 million is associated now with the encumbrance for the contract for the HVAC project that's going on at the current jail facility. So that's what happened with the $10 million. So 5.5, yeah, it's not available for the new construction, but it was made available for the current jail, and then the other was used for purchasing land that may be where the new facility goes anyway. So it does look like it was taken away from the jail, but it really wasn't. Both of those pieces are that all of that $10 million was spent on pieces for either the current jail or the new location. Anybody have any?
I have some thoughts, of course. I feel like this item's premature to really make any kind of movement on until two things. For me, two things. It would be our September supplement sources of revenue figure, and it would be a capital projects list of needs. When they're talking about studying, developing, what should go to capital projects new jail, plus amounts dedicated to other purposes. For me, that would be the two items I need. I think we need to see our supplement number, and I think we need to gather a list of capital projects. I mean, clearly this one at the top of the list, and see what other current needs there are.
Immediate needs.
Yeah, I wasn't here during budget board, but I listened and watched remotely. And I kind of understood it as kind of the same. We'll consider this, study it during the BET process. Jason reached out to me when he was adding this, and I kind of took this as this was discussed at budget board, not necessarily us coming up with solutions and anything today. It was just hey, this is something that we need to be tracking and looking at as we consider our budget recommendation to budget board for the September supplement. So I completely agree with what Christy said. I mean, we have to have those pieces of information before we move forward with really any recommendations, because no matter what, this money, even if we said, yeah, use this for that or use this for that, you can't do it until after the September supplement anyway, because this money wasn't included in the revenue projections for last fiscal year. So it's not available until we get the new numbers and they're approved by budget board, and we have a new revenue amount that is available to be budgeted. So.
Well, I agree with that. I think we need more information, and obviously the budget board tasked us with kind of doing this sort of research. So I appreciate going through that process when we have all of that information. But I also feel like we would be remiss if we didn't mention the original intent of this $14.8 million. And that was.
I was certainly going to pat down.
Mhm, right. And, you know, just as a reminder, the original intent of this $14.8 million was to go towards the new construction of the jail.
Yeah, and I was going to say something, at least publicly that way. People weren't surprised by the way I vote. You know, just as a trip down memory lane, when the sheriff went in front of the Board of County Commissioners, he asked all three commissioners if, in the original $260 million bond, it said the jail, the sheriff's office, and emergency management. Obviously, we found a path for emergency management. We needed a path to remodel the current sheriff's facility, which has now happened. And at that meeting, the sheriff made a promise and a commitment to dedicate a person to the extensive amount of paperwork that it took to even get this number into reality, because it was substantial, hundreds of hours, which is fine. That's what he committed to. And then two, that he made a commitment that every vote that came up, he would put it back into the jail fund. You know, he certainly realizes he's one vote on the budget board, but publicly he made a commitment, and publicly he wants to stand by that commitment. And publicly and privately he wants to stand by that commitment. So, if I ever vote no on something, it's not because I'm against improvements to our own facilities, because I'm certainly, you know, we're certainly not one to cut our nose to spite our face, but the sheriff is certainly to be dedicated from his single vote to putting it back to where he originally made the promise. Because again, the commissioners are gracious enough to push that forward for him. He feels like he owes it back to the commissioners and the citizens whenever he made that original commitment. So
I'm in line with that.
He certainly wants to stick to that. And again, it's not because he's against, you know, courthouses and yeah, he's trying to maintain his word.
And that was kind of what I was getting at earlier, is that when you mentioned the jail construction, that includes the behavioral care center, correct? Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're tracking that is a significant piece of that project as a whole. So
yeah, so at least just want to put out there, not, sheriff's office isn't against anything else, just he certainly wants to maintain his promise back to the commissioners. They were again gracious enough to get our project off the ground, so that certainly means something to him.
That was our reasoning, you know, for putting it on, was because budget board did task BET with this, and, you know, the clerk's office also will support putting as much back into the construction of the new jail.
Yeah, and that also wasn't a statement for me, just sit out here and watch TV for the rest of the time we're talking about this too. I just at least wanted to get that out there. So, yeah, well, I'll pitch in. I just may vote no. I might sound hypocritical if I help, but then I pitch in and say vote no for something else. So, just didn't want it to sound too weird. So, Breaking Bad's probably got a new season or something.
Goodness.
Brandon's always told us how it is.
I thought it was good.
So all this is on pause until we get to the revenue numbers.
I would make a motion on 6 to postpone it to our next BET meeting, whether special or regular.
Got a motion second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That helped a lot.
All right, item 4.
I think John was gonna speak to this if he was here. I know he just got actuary numbers, I think, but I don't know how much he's really.
Yeah, I will talk to him. You mentioned regular or special meetings, because we're gonna get back into having to have special meetings. Now, whether we have to have a special meeting before our next regularly scheduled, I don't know. But if so, then we'll get him in here to discuss that. I mean, if we don't, then we're pushing a whole lot of stuff into a tight window, middle to end of September. So I think
We don't want to do that.
yeah, but I just don't know where we are on our numbers yet. So, I mean, we can't really move forward until we have some of those numbers. And I'm guessing we should have those in the next couple of weeks or so. So
Carrie, do you guys know? Jennifer Albert Carey?
Yeah, we're just waiting on some more data, and then it's in work, but we're still waiting on some numbers we don't have yet.
Is it an office or department you're waiting on?
What's that?
Is it an office or a department you're waiting on?
Partly, it's just the process has to go through, just like the assessor's piece just went through one piece of it, we did last week, and then we're waiting on a second one. But they're also constrained on where they get their numbers, where they get their data. So it's just a thing. When we looked at the last couple of years, we're well within the timeline for getting that together. But everything's ready to go, it's just waiting on numbers.
Yeah, I'm thinking that in years past, we were middle, maybe back middle of August, but so, yeah, we're not late yet, but we're not way far away from it either.
Right, I
So,
want it on the radar, yeah.
Right.
yeah.
We don't wanna be late.
Yeah, so once we get those numbers, once they become available, I can get with Cassie and send an email out to everybody to kind of look at people's schedules. I know it can be a little bit rough this time of year, with people being gone and whatnot, but I want to try to make sure that we fit as well as we can to everybody's schedule, and we'll start meeting and having some discussions.
I probably should have asked this, I was gonna ask a question about 6, I don't know if we need to potentially reopen it, but the only question I had was, is there any issue in us pushing it back a month? Or are we running into any problems with that December of 24 deadline of having it like a bid in hand and encumbered?
It
Not
doesn't,
these
it
dollars.
doesn't,
That's ARPA dollars.
But that is ARPA dollars, right?
well, no, these are not ARPA dollars.
No, I'm sorry, I meant
These
for
are
the,
general
I meant for the
fund dollars.
behavioral health side of it though. Because we'd have to have the whole contract encumbered up front.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
we're
okay,
fine,
okay.
but even if we were up against it, there's really not anything that we can do because the money's not available for us to, but yeah, I appreciate the thought.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we didn't.
No, I think they're looking at
Just went 3 months, 4 months.
beginning to middle of December, having final numbers maybe from our CMAR, is what my recollection is. So. Okay, so item 4, we will address that later. Item 5, discussion possible actions regarding procedures and timing of general fund revenue supplement. And I think that's what we were just discussing. So no additional action there. Any citizens that wish to participate? Seeing none, board comments, District 2?
No, thank you. Sorry for my tardiness.
No, you're fine. No, thank you. Treasurer? Court clerk? Assessor? Sure. I am good as well. Let's see, any new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Got a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Oh, man.